So let's get started with Excel 2016. In this first lecture, we're going to identify the parts of the screen. Then we'll go through the worksheet, navigating within the worksheet, how to do multiple worksheets, the details of how the menu and the ribbon work, and then opening, closing, saving files. So let's double click on Excel 2016. And to start, we're going to ignore these templates. We will refer to some of them towards the end of the course. For right now, I want to click on Blank Workbook. Now the worksheet takes up most of the screen. That's where you're going to be doing your work, and we'll cover that in detail in the next lecture. For now, I want to start at the top and go down. There is at the top here, actually the very top, there's something that it has the Save button. A lot of times that's all people use this thing for. It's called the Quick Access Toolbar. Very easy to customize, and you can put commands up there that you use all the time. So there'll be a lecture on the details of customizing this later on. Below that is the menu, and as I click on each one of these, each menu selection is called a tab, and each tab has its own ribbon. That's this area that shows you some of the commands that are available for that tab. And there is a home tab that you start on by default, and that's where you spend most of your time. We'll go through a few lectures from now that goes through the details of this. Below that, below the Quick Access Toolbar and the menu and the ribbon, are two items that we'll go through a lot in the next lecture, and that is the name box, this thing on the left, and then the formula bar and what this check mark and X is, what all that stuff is. So we'll find out about that when we go through the details of the worksheet in the next lecture. So let's move down to the bottom. There is a tab sticking downwards called Sheet 1. That's the name of this sheet. We opened up a workbook, and notice on the very top it says Book 1-Excel. So your workbook is really a book of potentially multiple sheets. There's a plus down here on the bottom. If I click on the plus, it will create a new sheet. And I can go back and forth just by clicking on the sheet. You'll find we can change the names, change the order, delete a sheet, move it to another workbook if we want. So we'll do all those things in lectures dedicated to sheets, multiple sheets. Now below there at the very bottom of the screen is a status bar, and right now it just says ready. There's a lot of messages that will appear in the status bar as you do different functions in Excel, and most people just don't pay any attention to it. It can help a lot, especially if you have Excel do something unexpected. That's the first place I look, is at the status bar. There are a couple of structures over here that I think are better illustrated by having a worksheet with some content in it. So I'm going to open a file that we're going to use 2 lectures from now. It's called 2015 Orders, and it's just a list of customers and 12 months. And then if they did do an order in a month, it shows the total of the orders. And this makes it more obvious that when I use this horizontal scroll bar, you can see that I'm moving left and right on the worksheet. And this one, notice I don't know if you noticed, but before we had a real wide box on the vertical scroll bar, but now it's very small. So it's giving you an indication that this is a pretty tall file. If I click on the down arrow, you can see I start moving down. I also can drag this box. So it works just like a scroll bar anywhere else in Windows. Now, the other thing that is helped by having this sheet here is on the very bottom, below the horizontal scroll bar, are 3 buttons. The first one is called Normal. And if I click in the sheet, you can see that Normal's highlighted. That's where I'm at right now, the normal view. If I click on the second button, it's called Page Layout View. It makes it obvious what this does. It shows you when you want to print your file how it's going to appear on the pages. You can see that we just don't have any more room after June, so everything else flows on to the next page. There's an entire section we have on printing, so I'll show you how to make this work, where you've got the customer names in this, for instance, on the left side of the second page on all the pages, and the headers on the top of all the pages. Then this third button, Page Break View, also helps you do the same thing. It shows you where the page breaks are going to be, and that helps with printing quite a bit. You can see this is a pretty big file if this is page 53. So I'll go back to normal. One last thing, so we've gone through the entire screen except for the bottom right corner here. This little zoom, if I click and drag, you can see that it just makes it larger. I can also make it smaller. If I want to see how big this is, I can do that. So that's the zoom. Now what we'll do in the next lecture is we'll go through, we'll use a blank worksheet again. I'll just go ahead and close this. When you open another worksheet, it's almost like you have a second Excel open, so I can close this and I don't need to save it, and the blank worksheet we were on comes back up. And so in the next lecture we're going to go through moving around on this worksheet, find out just how big is this thing. So I'll see you in the next lecture.